For years my parents said, "No money for you," while my sister got new cars, designer clothes and lavish vacations. I just smiled. Last week I signed the papers on my dream house. When I posted the keys against the front door, the group chat went nuclear. I was 13 when I realized I was invisible to my parents. Not in a supernatural way, just the kind that hurts more. Kayla was 15 that year and obsessed with horses. She got riding lessons, boots, a designer helmet, and a whole themed birthday party with hay bales and a horse-shaped cake. I remember because I helped Mom decorate. My own birthday was a month later. I got a card and a store-bought cupcake. No one even sang. At first I thought maybe it was just bad timing. Or maybe they were just tired. But the pattern never changed. When Kayla wanted something, it magically happened. When I asked for even half, it was suddenly a financial crisis. In high school she got a Jeep on her sweet 16. I asked if I could get my learner's permit and Dad told me to focus on school. I got a job at a diner, started walking there after class. No one asked where I went. No one cared that I was helping pay my own lunch bills. When I saved enough for a used bike, they made fun of it at dinner. College came. I got accepted to 4 but picked the cheapest state one because I didn't want to ask for money. Kayla, on the other hand, got into her dream school in California. My parents threw her a going-away party with custom cupcakes and matching luggage. They co-signed everything for her. I took out loans and worked shifts in the campus library to keep up. So I said nothing. Never complained. I kept thinking if I just worked harder they'd see me, notice me, appreciate me, but they never did. Kayla would come home for the holidays with new bags, new stories, new boyfriends. She was the sun. I was barely the porch light. Even after graduation nothing changed. I had no job offers at first, just rejection emails and silence. My parents never asked how I was doing. Meanwhile, Kayla got hired by some fashion branding agency that didn't seem to do anything, but paid her enough to get eyelash extensions every 2 weeks. They were so proud of her. They posted about her career on Facebook. I wasn't even mentioned when I landed a job in real estate. I didn't tell anyone I'd been living in my car for 3 weeks last year. Or that I showered at gyms while saving for a down payment. I kept quiet. I always kept quiet. Until last week. Last week I walked up the steps of a little ranch house I bought on my own. 3 bedrooms. A sunroom. A backyard that already had a swing tied to the old oak. I unlocked the door, stepped inside and didn't cry. I just stood there. Calm. Solid. Like the foundation I'd built for myself. Then I took a photo. Just my hand holding the keys, pressed against the front door. No caption. No flexing. And I dropped it in the family group chat. 10 minutes later it blew up. Kayla asked if it was a rental or something. Dad asked who bought it. Mom didn't say anything at first, then sent a thumbs up. Thumbs up. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part came the next morning when I woke up to find Kayla had posted a cryptic Instagram story about some people thinking they're better than their family, and how money doesn't buy class. She didn't tag me, but I wasn't stupid. And then my mom called. For the first time in weeks. But not to congratulate me. She wanted to know why I hadn't told them sooner. Why I had kept it a secret. If I was hiding something. I told her I wasn't hiding. I was just done explaining myself. That's when things started to turn. The calls kept coming after that. At first it was just Mom. She tried to sound casual, asking about the house, the neighborhood, how I managed it. I could hear the real questions under the surface. How did you afford this? Did someone give it to you? Did you get lucky? I answered vaguely. I told her I worked. I saved. I hustled. What I didn't say was that while Kayla was sipping cocktails at beach resorts, I was cold calling leads and showing houses to couples who ghosted me afterward. I didn't tell her how I skipped meals to save a little more. How I learned how to patch drywall and install cabinets from YouTube so I could flip a tiny 1-bedroom and finally make enough to qualify for my own mortgage. A few days later Dad called. That was rare. He never called me. He barely texted unless it was about logistics like Thanksgiving plans or who was bringing the wine. He said he was proud of me, but it sounded forced. He slipped in questions about my job, my income, whether I had a partner helping me with the bills. I told him I was alone. Completely. And that I liked it that way. After that they went quiet for a few days. I thought maybe they'd finally accepted it. That I didn't need them. That I was living my life. But then the comments started. Kayla made another post, this time clearly about me. Something about people who abandon their families the second they get a little money. Friends of hers liked it. Some of my cousins too. Then Mom texted me a photo of an old family gathering with a caption that said, "Miss the days when family mattered." I didn't respond. I was finally sleeping through the night. My kitchen smelled like fresh paint and cinnamon candles. The porch swing creaked when the wind picked up in the evening, and for the first time in my life I had space. Mentally. Physically. Emotionally. Then last Sunday they showed up. Unannounced. I was in the backyard trimming the hedges when I heard my front door open. I walked around and there they were. Mom, Dad, and Kayla. Standing in my hallway like they owned it. They didn't even ask if they could come in. Mom was already inspecting the living room, commenting on how modern it was. Dad asked about the square footage. Kayla was scrolling through her phone like she was bored out of her mind. I asked them what they were doing there. Mom said they were worried. That I was shutting them out. That this wasn't how family treated each other. I said nothing. Kayla muttered that it must be nice to suddenly have money, and Mom told her to hush, but I could see they'd rehearsed this. This whole thing was a performance. Then came the real reason they came. They wanted to know if I could help Kayla. Apparently her agency lost a major client, and she'd been put on temporary unpaid leave. She was thinking of taking time to rest and reset, but needed somewhere quiet to stay while figuring things out. Mom smiled like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I looked around at my house, my kitchen, my floors, my peace, and then I said no. Kayla laughed. She actually laughed like I'd told a joke, but I didn't say anything else. I opened the front door, and that's when Kayla called me selfish. Not just once. He kept going, saying I owed it to them. That I wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for how hard our parents worked to raise us. That this was supposed to be family property, not some personal fortress I was building to shut everyone out. I told them to leave. They didn't move. So I walked to the kitchen, pulled out 3 plastic grocery bags, and started bagging up the pastries Mom had brought as a gift. I handed them the bags. They left. But I knew that wasn't the end. 2 days after they left my house, I started to feel the first real peace in weeks. I lit a candle, put my phone on silent, and sat in the sunroom just watching the afternoon light shift on the walls. I remember thinking, maybe they got the message. I was wrong. That Thursday I came home from work and saw it. Bright red convertible, top down, parked diagonally across my driveway like it was posing for a magazine cover. And there was Kayla, half reclined on the hood with a pair of sunglasses and a Starbucks cup, scrolling through her phone like she was waiting for valet. I stayed in my car, engine running, staring at her. She didn't even flinch. Just looked up and waved like I was the guest. I finally stepped out. She stood up, stretched like she just had a nap, and said she was moving in. Said Mom told her it was fine, and besides it was only for a few weeks. I blinked. Told her to cut the joke. She didn't laugh. Instead she held up a key. My spare. The one I gave Mom when I first bought the house. Just in case of an emergency. I remember handing it to her in a tiny envelope, trusting she'd never use it without my permission. Kayla must have gotten it that same week. I walked into my house and felt instantly sick. She'd already made herself at home. Her shoes were by the door. A duffel bag sat half unzipped next to the couch. There was a half-drunk kombucha on my marble island, and my living room smelled like her floral body spray. She had even connected to the Wi-Fi. I told her to leave. She just smiled and said, "You've got the space." Called Mom. She didn't deny it. She said Kayla needed a fresh start. That she'd been through a rough patch. That this was a family home now and I needed to learn to share. When I asked if she gave Kayla the key, she said, "It's not a big deal." It was. I hung up, called a locksmith, and scheduled a full rekey for the next morning. That night, Kayla used my DoorDash account to order sushi. When I asked her to pay me back, she said she thought it was a housewarming treat. Then she fell asleep watching Netflix in my guest room, which used to be my office. I didn't sleep. I locked my bedroom door. I checked the windows. I didn't feel safe in my own house. The next morning, the locksmith came early. I had every lock changed. Deadbolts, back door, garage, even the one on the mailbox. I didn't tell Kayla. She was still asleep. I left for work before she woke up. She found out the hard way. Around noon I got a stream of furious text. She'd gone out for a smoothie, came back and couldn't get in. He said I was insane. That I'd locked her out like a stranger. He said Mom would never forgive me. I didn't respond. When I got home her car was gone. So were her things. But the silence didn't last. That night someone egged my house. 3 of my front windows were splattered with yolk. My car had a fresh scratch across the driver's side door, long and deep. Like someone had taken a key and dragged it all the way across. I checked the cameras. I'd installed them the day I moved in. But the footage showed nothing. Whoever did it wore a hoodie and avoided the lenses. Then came the voicemail. Blocked number. I played it twice to be sure. You think you're better than us now? You think money means you get to forget where you came from? It wasn't Kayla. It was Mom. I sat in my living room in the dark, phone in my lap, and let that sink in. She didn't even try to hide her voice. Didn't try to disguise the words. That voicemail wasn't a mistake. It was a warning. I thought about calling the cops, filing a report. But something stopped me. Because deep down I knew this wasn't about eggs or scratched paint. This was war. and they had just made it personal. The next morning I drove to work in a car that looked like it had crawled out of a war zone. The egg stains wouldn't come out of the paint. The scratch was worse than I thought. I pulled into the office and parked in the back just to avoid questions. My boss asked if everything was okay. I told him it was nothing. I didn't have the energy to explain that my family was slowly turning into a pack of strangers with my name in their mouths and my house in their crosshairs. By lunch I had 6 missed calls from Mom. 2 from Dad. Kayla sent me a video, just of her smiling into the camera with a latte in her hand and the words, "Some people just don't know how to share," written across the screen. I didn't open it fully. I knew what she was doing. That night I filed a police report. I didn't say who I suspected. Just gave the basic facts. Vandalism. Harassment. A voicemail from a blocked number. The officer asked if I had enemies. I almost laughed. It got worse after that. Kayla started showing up at my open houses, pretending to be a potential buyer, asking loudly about family-friendly neighborhoods, and whether the homes had enough space to accommodate selfish siblings. She'd leave fake reviews on my real estate page, calling me unreliable and emotionally unstable. A few of them even got flagged, but one stuck around long enough to spook a client. I lost the deal. I sent her a cease and desist letter. Paid a lawyer I couldn't afford. She posted a story of the envelope on Instagram with the caption, "When your sister would rather pay a lawyer than be a decent human." Then Dad called. He said I was tearing the family apart, that I was embarrassing them, that Kayla had nowhere else to go. He said something I won't forget. "If you don't help your sister, don't bother coming to Thanksgiving." I said okay. He didn't expect that. 2 weeks later I was in my house alone on Thanksgiving morning. I made pancakes. I watched movies. I sat on my porch with coffee and listened to the wind move through the oak in my backyard. And then I saw it. A photo posted by Kayla. The whole family at dinner. Candles lit. Turkey carved. Everyone smiling, even cousins I hadn't seen in years. And right in the middle of the table, my dishes. My dishes. The ceramic blue and white set I bought after closing on my first house sale. The set I brought to Mom's house months ago when she said hers were chipped. I didn't take them back because I thought it didn't matter. Now they were on display in some Norman Rockwell fantasy I wasn't invited to. That same evening I got an email from my broker. Someone had filed a complaint against me, anonymously. Said I was emotionally volatile and hostile to clients. Said I had a known family history of mental instability. The investigation froze my listings for 72 hours. 3 days of nothing. No income. No momentum. Just sitting on my porch again, staring at a scratch on my car that hadn't been there a month ago. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But more than anything, I wanted to understand how this had gotten here. How it had twisted so fast. I kept thinking of something Kayla once said when we were kids, after she pushed me into the pool and told everyone it was an accident. "You should have moved faster." And now here I was, finally moving. Finally building something. And they were doing everything they could to drag me back into the water. That night I went to my parents' house. I didn't call. I didn't knock. And this time I wasn't planning on smiling. I pulled into their driveway just after 9 p.m. The sky was dark, but the windows glowed warm like some perfect little postcard. I could see them through the living room curtains, laughing, passing around plates, sipping wine like nothing in the world was wrong. I stood on the porch for a moment. My hands weren't shaking. I thought they would be. I thought I'd be nervous. But there was nothing. Just this steady, calm kind of rage. Like a tide that had finally stopped pretending it wasn't rising. I let myself in. They didn't hear the door. They were too loud, too happy. It felt surreal. Like I had walked into someone else's life. The table was set with my dishes, the ceramic blue and white ones I'd worked overtime to afford. The ones I'd brought to Mom's place months ago just to help out when hers were chipped. I hadn't thought twice about it back then. I walked through the kitchen and into the dining room. Kayla saw me first. She was pouring wine into a glass that wasn't hers. She looked up, paused, then laughed like I was just late to dinner. Mom turned next. Her face dropped for a second, then quickly rearranged into something polite. Dad barely reacted. Just glanced at me and reached for another slice of pie. No one asked why I was there. I didn't say a word. I just turned back into the kitchen, pulled open the cabinet above the sink and started grabbing the plates. One by one. And then I dropped the first. It shattered against the tile in this sharp, clean burst. The sound was loud enough to snap whatever spell they'd been under. I didn't look at them. I reached for the next one and dropped it too. Then another. Mom rushed in, said my name. I ignored her. She reached for my arm and I stepped back. I told her not to touch me, The fifth plate bounced once and cracked in half. The sixth exploded like a firework. I kept going until all of them were gone. Broken. Just a pile of sharp blue and white on the floor, surrounded by stunned silence. Then I turned around and spoke. I told them everything. Not screamed. Not cried. Just said it straight. Cold and clear. I told them I remembered every moment they made me feel like I didn't matter. The birthdays they ignored. The things they said they couldn't afford for me, but somehow always could for Kayla. The way they vanished during the hardest years of my life, then suddenly came back the second I had something of my own. I told them I was done being their scapegoat. Their afterthought. Their reliable plan B. Kayla rolled her eyes and started to say something. I cut her off. I told her she wasn't the victim. That her entire life had been built on everyone else doing things for her. That I was done cleaning up the mess she left behind every time the real world told her no. And then I turned to Mom and asked her one thing. Why did she hate me so much? She opened her mouth but nothing came out. I picked up the last plate. My favorite, the one with the tiny crack I always hid at the bottom of the stack, and I slammed it into the sink. Not out of anger. Just because it didn't belong here anymore. No one moved. No one spoke. I turned and walked out of that house like it was a fire I'd finally escaped. I didn't take my coat. I didn't say goodbye. I just got in my car and drove home. Blocked all their numbers before I even reached the highway. Deleted the family group chat without reading the new messages. I expected tears. Regret. Maybe guilt. But what I felt instead was something I'd never known before. Relief. I slept with my phone off for the first time in years. The silence was beautiful. But I should have known it wouldn't last. Because when narcissists lose control of you, they don't let go. They just switch tactics. It started small. A week of silence. Then I thought maybe they were done. That maybe I'd finally burned the bridge and they'd stop trying to rebuild it with gasoline and flowers. Then came the first card. A glittery, store-bought thing with some quote about forgiveness and family. No return address, no message. Just, love Mom. I threw it away without opening it fully. 3 days later a package arrived. A box of towels from some overpriced home goods store, with a little tag that said, "Every home needs soft corners." Kayla's name was on the order receipt. They were trying to play nice. Suddenly I was getting likes from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins I barely knew were commenting on my posts with, "So proud of you," and "Let's catch up soon." Like someone had gone around passing out talking points. Then Dad called. I didn't pick up. The voicemail said he missed me. That he was proud of me. That families fight, but what matters is how we come back together. 2 hours later he sent a video of him walking through Home Depot, pointing at patio furniture and saying, "Thought you might like this for your porch." It was surreal. These were the same people who had screamed at me for buying a house without them. Who tried to sabotage my job. Who left eggs dripping down my front door. Now they were pretending none of it happened. Kayla sent a photo of us as kids. Me holding her hand at the zoo. Her message said, "I miss when it was just us." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I blocked her number again. She messaged me on Instagram 2 hours later. I blocked that too. I should have felt good. Victorious. I'd won. I had my house, my peace, my freedom. But I wasn't celebrating. Because this wasn't reconciliation. It was a trap. They didn't want to apologize. They didn't want to take responsibility. They just wanted access again. To rewrite the story. Make themselves the victims. Paint me as the cold daughter who turned her back on a loving family. And the more I ignored them, the nicer they got. Mom sent a long email filled with fake warmth and curated concern. It was all about healing and moving forward. She wrote, "I see now that we've made mistakes and I want to be better. You've grown so much." Then halfway through she asked if I could help Kayla find a new apartment. There was the real reason. Always Kayla. Always some request, some soft ask wrapped in a fake compliment. I didn't respond. A week later they showed up again. Not at my house this time, but at my open house. I was mid-tour walking a couple through the living room of a beautiful 3-bedroom, and there they were standing in the entryway. Mom, Dad, and Kayla, dressed like they were attending a PTA meeting. Smiling. I froze. My clients turned and greeted them politely, thinking they were part of the tour. Mom jumped right in, started talking about how proud they were of me, how hard I'd worked, what a joy I'd been growing up. I excused myself, pulled them aside and told them to leave. Quietly. They refused. Said they had every right to be there. That they were supporting me. That I should be grateful. That was the moment it finally clicked. They didn't see me. Not really. They saw a version of me they could control. One they could weaponize, decorate, and drag out when it was convenient. But the real me, the one who walked away, who said no, who built a life without them, that version scared them. Because she didn't need them. And that was unforgivable. So I told them this was the last time. I told them if they ever showed up again, I'd file for a restraining order. I told them I wasn't playing anymore. That there wasn't going to be some warm reunion, some holiday hug with violins in the background. I didn't want it. I didn't want them. And I didn't want to heal with people who only said sorry because they'd run out of ways to hurt me. They left. And this time I think they finally got it. Or maybe not. But it doesn't matter. Because I'm not going back. It's been 3 weeks. No calls. No texts. No packages. No surprise appearances. Nothing. It should feel like peace, but it doesn't. Because I know them. This isn't surrender. This is strategy. The calm before the next intrusion. I can feel it. Like they're circling, watching from a distance, waiting for something to shift. Some weakness to open back up. A friend of mine ran into Kayla at a coffee shop last week. She told him I was going through a phase, and that family always wins in the end. Mom's been posting Bible quotes about forgiveness. Dad liked one of my old Facebook posts from 5 years ago just to remind me he still exists. It's quiet now. But it's not over. Not even close.